She walked past him every single day without ever looking twice. The busy city street was always filled with the sound of rushing footsteps, honking cars, and distant conversations. But in the middle of all that noise, there was one silent figure that no one seemed to notice. An old man sitting quietly on the cold concrete sidewalk, wrapped in a faded brown coat that had seen too many winters. His hands were rough and trembling slightly as he held an old paper cup, hoping someone might drop a few coins. But most people just hurried by, their eyes fixed on their phones or the next important meeting. To Emily Carter, he was simply part of the background, like the cracked pavement or the flickering street light. She never stopped. She never looked. She never cared. But what Emily didn't know, what she could never have imagined, was that this same old man, the one she ignored every morning, was the man who had once held her tiny newborn body in his arms, kissed her soft forehead, and cried tears of pure joy while whispering, "My daughter, my little Emily, I will always love you." Emily Carter, at 28 years old, lived a life that seemed straight out of a dream. She was the only daughter of Richard Carter, one of the most powerful billionaires in the country. Their family name opened every door. She woke up every morning in a luxurious penthouse with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the glittering city skyline. Her wardrobe was filled with designer dresses and coats that cost more than most families earned in a year. She drove a sleek black Mercedes, had a personal driver when she wanted, and her future was already mapped out with board meetings, high society events, and immense power. From the outside, everything looked perfect. But inside, Emily often felt a strange emptiness. The relationships around her felt transactional. Friends smiled for photos but rarely asked how she truly felt. Her father, Richard, was strict and controlling. He gave her everything money could buy but very little emotional warmth. Every morning, without fail, Emily stopped at the same upscale cafe called Morning Brew on her way to the office. She would order her usual oat milk latte with a touch of vanilla, check her emails, reply to a few messages, and then leave. Just a few meters away from the cafe entrance, on the same spot every day, sat that old man. Same worn-out coat, same tired posture, same quiet dignity, even in his poverty. Some days it rained, some days it was freezing cold, but he was always there. Emily walked past him hundreds of times. Sometimes she didn't even register his presence. He had become invisible to her busy world. Then came one particularly harsh winter morning. The wind was biting, cutting through clothes like sharp blades. The temperature had dropped so low that even people in thick jackets were hurrying to get indoors. Emily stepped out of her warm car, her expensive coat wrapped tightly around her. As she walked toward the cafe, she glanced sideways and noticed the old man shivering violently. His thin body was shaking uncontrollably. His lips had turned a pale blue, and his eyes looked distant and exhausted. Something stirred inside her, a small, unexpected flicker of compassion. She stood there for a long moment, arguing with herself. It's not my responsibility. There are shelters. There are so many others like him. But her feet refused to move forward. Finally, she turned around, went back into the cafe, and ordered an extra large hot coffee with cream and 2 sugars. She also picked up a warm croissant. With slightly nervous hands, she walked over to him and extended the cup and the food. "Here, you look like you really need this today. It's freezing." The old man slowly raised his head. Their eyes met properly for the very first time. His eyes were deep brown, filled with years of unspoken pain, quiet resilience, and something else. A strange, almost familiar warmth. He took the cup with both trembling hands and whispered in a soft, cracked voice, "Thank you, miss. God bless you. You are very kind." That simple thank you carried a depth that surprised Emily. For a few seconds, the noisy street seemed to fade away. She felt a strange connection she couldn't explain. She nodded and walked away. But that moment stayed with her all day. After that cold morning, Emily's routine quietly began to change. At first, it was small things. The next day, she brought him another coffee. Then she started adding a sandwich or some warm soup. Soon, she found herself sitting on the small ledge beside him for 5 or 10 minutes every morning. She talked, and he listened with full attention. His name was Daniel. He spoke very little about his own past. He said he had faced many difficulties in life, but he never complained. What amazed Emily was how carefully he remembered everything she shared. He knew her favorite drink, the names of her stressful colleagues, how much she hated the pressure of living up to the Carter family name, and even the way her eyes lit up when she talked about simple childhood memories, like eating ice cream in the park or her mother reading bedtime stories. In her world of luxury, power plays, and fake politeness, Daniel gave her something she had never experienced before: pure, judgment-free listening. With him, she felt truly seen and heard. It was strange and comforting at the same time. How could a man with nothing material make her feel more understood than anyone in her rich circle? What Emily had no idea about was the painful truth hidden behind Daniel's quiet eyes. For more than 25 years, Daniel had been watching over her from a distance, never coming too close, never revealing himself. He knew which school she went to, which university she attended, the names of her childhood friends, and even the little habits she had developed over the years. Years ago, Daniel was a simple, honest man working hard to build a small life with his wife and newborn daughter Emily. But fate brought Richard Carter into their world. Richard, ambitious and powerful even then, became obsessed with Emily's mother. Through money, manipulation, legal pressure, and threats, he tore the family apart. He took custody of the child and forced Daniel out of her life completely. Daniel was given a final cruel warning. If you truly love your daughter and want her to have a safe, luxurious life, stay away forever. Never contact her. If you try, I will make sure you lose everything that is left. With a completely broken heart, Daniel chose to disappear. He lived in the shadows, working odd jobs, sleeping in shelters sometimes just so he could catch occasional glimpses of his daughter growing up. He believed that staying away was the greatest sacrifice and the purest form of love he could give her, letting her live in wealth and security instead of poverty with him. One stormy night, everything changed forever. Emily was driving home late after a long and exhausting day. Heavy rain was pouring down, making the road slippery and visibility almost zero. Suddenly, a large truck lost control and slammed into her car. The impact was violent. Her car spun out of control, crashed into the barrier, and glass shattered everywhere. Metal twisted with a sickening sound. Then, silence. In the pouring rain, one figure came running desperately toward the wreckage. Daniel. Without thinking about his own safety, without any fear for himself, he pulled open the damaged door and dragged Emily out just seconds before the car burst into flames. He saved her life. But in doing so, he was badly injured by falling debris and the force of the rescue. At the hospital, doctors worked frantically to save both of them. Emily survived with minor injuries, but Daniel was in critical condition. During emergency treatment, a routine blood test was done. The results came back and left the doctors stunned. There was a perfect biological match. Further tests confirmed the shocking truth. Daniel was Emily's biological father. When Emily was told, she stood frozen in the hospital corridor, the world spinning around her. No, This can't be true, she whispered repeatedly, but it was. She ran to his ICU room, tears already streaming down her face. She held his weak hand tightly. Why didn't you ever tell me? All these years. Why? Daniel looked at her with tired but peaceful eyes and smiled faintly. His voice was barely a whisper. I promised your other father that I would stay away. I wanted you to have the best life possible, the life I could never give you. Seeing you happy from afar was enough for me. Emily's voice broke completely. I didn't need a better life, Dad. I needed you. I needed my real father. For the first time in decades, Daniel heard the word he had dreamed of every single night. Dad. A single tear rolled down his cheek. He squeezed her hand gently. And then, his hand slowly slipped away. He was gone. But he left with the peace he had waited his entire broken life for. Sometimes, the people we ignore the most on the streets of life are the ones who have loved us the deepest and sacrificed everything for us.